striking out with you, Scott. Sorry, I don't eat French toast, and I'm not watching the Super Bowl, so. I don't know. I can tell a mean story sometimes, though. This is week 2 of Don't Hang Up. For those of you who are following along, this is our second series of the year, second month of the year. It's all about Simeon. Well, it's about the meaning of the name Simeon, not really about Simeon at all. Last week we talked about Samuel and his journey to become a priest and all that it took for him to really hear God's calling and to understand how to speak with God, hearing the messages. We're going to be moving on to other individuals for the rest of the series of people who have been heard by God or that God has heard. And before we even do those, though, I want to tell you a story about Mark. Mark is waiting on a UPS package to arrive. We've all been there, right? We've all been waiting for a UPS package. Something you got coming that you ordered that you have this built-up anticipation of its arrival. You're excited for it. Probably a fun package. A lot of times it's a fun package. You know, maybe an accessory for the house or new clothes or a pair of earbuds that you're hoping you won't lose 10 minutes after you got them. You know, all the reviews, all the stuff that you read online about it, it was the right price, it was the right everything. You buy it, you order it, you click all the buttons you go through, and then you wait for the old-fashioned package delivery. We've all been there, yes? Yes. But Mark's package isn't a fun package. Mark's package is a necessary package. Inside the box that he's waiting on is replacement medical equipment for his daughter. It's not life or death right now, but it's important and it's going to need to be taken care of soon because it does matter. And there are only a few places in the country that sell this stuff, and none of them are near him, so he has to go on a very special medical supplies website. He has to get a very specific type of device, and he has to order it from that specialty website and have it shipped. And then he has to wait for the shipping. I intentionally paused there for dramatic effect, you see. It helps build up the severity of the emotion that Mark is dealing with. That's called a poignant pause. That type of silence is used intentionally to reveal to the listener that there is an emotion that needs to be intensified for the whole situation. It exaggerates that concept of pain and waiting. It's silence that feels heavy. That's what Mark had to do, though. He has to wait. That's all he can do is wait. And not that it really will do any good, but after he places the order, he goes to the tracking part of the website to track how it's going. And he is looking at his phone to track the package immediately after he orders it. And not that it will do any good, but 10 seconds later, he hits the refresh button to see if anything has changed since he placed the order. And I'm sure we've all been there as well. He's refreshing the tracking page immediately, even though there's really nothing that's going to happen in those 10 seconds. But like him, we all want to see it moving. We want to know that it's going, that there's something happening, even if we have no control over it. Because it's maddening sometimes to try to follow and track a thing and be waiting for a thing that you have no control over. You don't get to have a drone camera that you can send out to where the warehouse is and like to aerially follow overhead. Yep, there's the package leaving the building. There's the little man putting it in the truck, and he's going to make the truck go here and here and here. We don't get to see that happen. You have no idea where that package is other than the convenient little words that the website puts up for you to let you know the process. And those words can be very uninformative. Incidentally, if you did have a drone camera, you would just take the drone and go down and say, hey, put the package on the drone, and then fly it up and get it back to where you are. Someday we will be there, right? That's coming very, very soon, frighteningly. But for now, Mark has to rely on the hope that he gets from those 3 very unspecific yet hopeful words. Out for delivery. Good. It's in motion. It's in motion. It's on its way. Forward progress. Out for delivery. And then an hour later, delayed. No explanation, just that one word. Delayed. Mark knows the system works. He believes and trusts in UPS. He believes that the truck actually does exist, that there is a physical truck that is coming at some point. But belief doesn't stop the pacing. Belief doesn't stop the tracking of the page and the refreshing. Belief doesn't settle his nerves. He just keeps checking those same three objects, his phone, the tracking number, and the front door, looking out to see if something's coming. And the longer it takes, the louder the silence feels. And that waiting, that time, it hurts. Exodus tells a story like that. People waiting, promise already made, and a silence that feels heavy. Exodus 2:23. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out. And their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. That phrase, during that long period, that phrase is doing a lot of work. It is a very heavy phrase. Every cry has a delayed response. We need to sit on that for a second. That during that long period lasted decades. The Israelites cried and groaned for decades. There were entire generations of people who were born, lived, and died while that cry was happening. It continued for decades. And nothing changed from the Israelites' perspective, at least not that they could see. Back with Mark, the tracking still says delayed. No updates, no driver in sight. He's just waiting, hoping that maybe somehow something is malfunctioning in the tracking system, like whatever thing that the website uses to figure out how a truck is from here to here, some UPS AI robot, whatever it is, something in that process is not working. And he's hoping that maybe if he just stares out the side of the window, he's going to see that truck come around the corner, and the guy's going to come out with a package for his daughter, and he's going to say, sorry, TrackerBot 9000 went down again today, sir. Some sort of power failure or something. But the problem with this waiting, it's not just the time that it takes, but the imagination that comes with the waiting. When we wait, when we have to wait, our minds fill the silence. We assume the worst, right? We wonder if someone forgot, or if someone stole it. Or what if the whole nation and this entire system has been hijacked? That pause was also intentional. That was called a pregnant pause. It's packed with suspense and anticipation. You know there's more dramatic words coming. You know that I'm going to say something else, and you're going to start to fill that space yourself with whatever your worried mind can come up with. What's he going to say after a nationwide system? Pregnant pauses allow you to fill the gaps. You come up with your own drama while you wait, in anticipation. That pregnant pause is there, just like Mark has, waiting for his delayed package. But the delay does not mean that the package stopped existing. The package is out there. And for the people in Exodus, the delay does not mean that God has stopped listening. 2:24-25. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. God heard before God moved. He heard before he moved. He understood their cries. He speaks their language. He knows what they're saying. He's understanding the cry that they're calling out with. His delay is not absence. Him deciding when to respond has nothing to do with him just being absent. It was preparation. Delay is not denial, it's development. I want to tell you another story. At almost the exact same time that Mark is refreshing his little tracking on his phone, there's another man, we're going to call him David, is rushing out grabbing his keys. David's an emergency responder, and his radio is crackling and spitting out little bits of information. Not a whole lot to go off of, but enough of the details that he knows where he's going and he knows that there's been an accident, some sort of crash. He doesn't really know what yet, but it's enough to know that he needs to rush out immediately. And he goes, grabs his gloves, his radio, his flashlight, and he moves. There's no tracking page for where he's going. There's nothing to follow with updates on a website to know where he's headed. There is only the immediate action in response to the emergency call. So what Mark experiences as silence, David experiences as urgency. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God remembers what he never forgot. That word remembered that we have there, it's not saying that God somehow forgot and then remembered. It's not like, oh yeah, those Israelites, man, totally lost track of them. That would be incredibly difficult to explain about an all-knowing and all-powerful God, that if he were just to forget things. He's not suffering from memory lapses. The Hebrew word that is translated as remembers there is the Hebrew word zakar. Zakar. It means to act on behalf of. You're stepping in, jumping into action, doing a thing at the time that it needs to be done. When the scripture says that God remembers, it means God steps in. Like a dispatcher who already knows the system, who already knows how routes get done, how emergencies get called out, already knows who they're going to call because of who's on call, but now sends out the signal. That's Zakar acting on behalf. David didn't cause the accident that he was responding to. He didn't know how to respond in the moment, but he didn't forget how responses happened. He never forgot how to respond, totally. When the call came, he stepped in. He moved with purpose. He acted on behalf of Zakar. God's remembering is not a mental defect. There is nothing happening in God's mind where he has forgotten and then remembered. He's taking action on genuine cries of his people. Some actions happen immediately. There are some that have to take place, and that purpose and movement has to be swift. Matthew 14, when Jesus is walking on the water, y'all remember that one, right? It appears in 3 different Gospels, but only the one in Matthew do we get the account of Peter doing it as well. The other 2 just tells Jesus walking. Matthew tells us with what Peter says. The disciples are in the boat, they see Jesus out there in the water. Verse 28, Matthew 14. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You have little faith, he said. Why did you doubt? So you might read that, hear that, and think, okay, well, yeah, that's obvious. He's sinking. He needs to be helped immediately. But go look back at the 2 verses together there at the end, 30 and 31. He's crying out to Jesus, and Jesus immediately reaches his hand after he cries out. The moment he cries out, Jesus responds and reaches his hand out. I grew up hearing this passage and ministers telling the story of Peter and walking on the water and Jesus on the water. And it was always more drawn out than this. This is all there is to the account. There's like 5 verses where Peter says, hey, call me out there. Jesus says, okay. And then he walks out on the water. He starts to sink. He cries out. Jesus pulls him in. That's it. But you like to put dramatic effect in these things, right? A lot of ministers will do dramatic pauses to add emotion. You got to put dramatic pauses in. And you can make it get drawn out where Peter steps out of the water and he's focused on Jesus and he's looking at Jesus and he's fixated on this one thing. And then he starts to get distracted, and he starts to look away, and he starts to get worried, and he starts to have fear, and he starts to have doubt. And in those times, that's when he starts to sink. And that's where the ministers put the little dramatic pauses. Is he going to sink? And then he looks back to Jesus. And then he starts to be righted again. He starts to get his footing again. And then, dramatic pause. He looks away. He gets distracted. He doesn't focus again on Jesus, and he starts to sink. And the ministers that I've heard tell the story, they will go through that dramatic pause process, which helps to further my point. If this is actually how it happened, if what this account went on for a few minutes where Peter looks away, gets distracted, gets worried, has doubts, and starts to sink, and then refocuses on Jesus, it helps to support the point that Jesus waited until he cried out and then immediately spoke or immediately reached out to him. Jesus didn't forget while he was on the water, oh wait, this is unnatural. People aren't supposed to do this. He's sinking, I better help him. He's not dumbfounded by what's happening. Jesus is not awestruck by the fact that Peter is walking on the water. He's not shocked at all. He was right there the whole time. He was knowing what was happening. He knew how it was going to happen. And he waited for Peter to speak directly with his own voice and say, Lord, save me. And from that point, he didn't wait. He answered that cry immediately. But sometimes the response isn't as immediate as you want it to be. I intentionally used a long pause there, you see. That was a narrative tool. That was called a transition pause. Transition pauses are used to create space of silence when you want to say something that indicates you've moved on to a new story. Or in our case, the original story with Mark. Mark is still waiting for his package. No updates, nothing in the tracking system. He's moved on from the thoughts of hackers or TrackerBot 9000 breaking down or thieves or whatever else. Now he's just angry. Mark is angry at the UPS driver that he's never met. The guy that he has no idea who he is. He's mad at the driver who's not there yet. He's mad at UPS for not being more communicating to him, even though there really isn't anything to communicate. He's mad at himself for not ordering backup supplies for his daughter who has a condition that she was born with. And his daughter's condition that she was born with, well, if he's going to be angry, he might as well go all the way back to the beginning, right? He might as well be angry at the fact that he has to do this for his daughter in the first place. That this is something that she was born with. He's had to stay on top of all of her medical supplies since she was born. Extra doctor's trips. Making sure to be extra cautious when she did activities. Staying on top of all of it since her birth. And who does he get to be angry at because of all this? He's angry at God. Angry that she had to show extra care and extra precautions that the other girls didn't have to do. Angry that she would have to spend the rest of her life avoiding certain activities that everyone should be able to do. So, while there are some people out there crying, Lord, save me, there are other people at the same time saying, Lord, I forget you. I'm done with you. I forget you. Even if he knows what we're crying about, we still need to make the noise. Exodus 3:7, the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. God says, I have indeed seen it. Yeah, it's obvious. Of course I have. I've seen them. I've heard them. I care. I always have. So why wait for the cry? Why does there need to be any time waiting when your people have cried out for you? Why doesn't God hear the call and then dispatch the emergency immediately? Because crying doesn't inform God. It transforms us. When a baby cries, it's not something the parent's not aware of. The baby knows, or the parent knows that the baby's crying. The crying creates the connection. That cry leads out to a hand reaching in. That spoken voice coming out is the message from the internal becoming external. It's a call and response. It's like our Shema. Call and response, hearing and responding. God hears. Maybe the response isn't as fast as we want, and maybe the response isn't the type that we want. But he wants us to continue crying out in faith because we believe that there's a response. We may not see it right now. We may not know where it's coming from, but we believe it's there, so we continue to cry out with hope of relief. Mark could stop refreshing his website. He could say, well, they already know. They know it's backed up. They know it's a problem. But every refresh button is hope. Every check is trust. Every glance at that door is a belief that help is still coming. David could drive to the emergency without the siren blaring, without making any noise at all, because he's already on his way, and the noise of the siren doesn't create the rescue. What it does signal is that the rescue is on its way. It communicates that someone's cry has been heard. Someone is moving into action. It's a car. The cry doesn't convince God. It aligns us with what God is already doing. We just may not know the whole story. Dramatic, pregnant, transitional pause. Here's the part you didn't know yet. The package that Mark is waiting for never made it to the truck. The delay wasn't a routing issue, wasn't website hackers, wasn't a warehouse problem. And that accident David was responding to was a UPS airplane. A UPS cargo plane went down. Everything stopped. Everything changed. It was transformed. That silence that Mark felt was the same moment and the same reason David was running immediately toward chaos. What felt like nothing happening was actually everything shifting. Some responses are delayed, some are immediate, but we don't stop crying out. Romans 12:11 and 12. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Through the good and the bad, continue to pray through all of it, always. Some of you are refreshing Heaven's tracking website right now. You're checking the door and watching the clock and wondering if your prayer has gotten lost. Like you've cried out a bunch and you think you should have seen the answer by now. It should have been at your door, but it's not. Hear this. Just because you can't see the response doesn't mean the response isn't already in motion. Make the noise. Cry out. Refresh the page. Look to the door. Because God hears delayed cries and he remembers without forgetting. And if you've been sinking for what feels like forever, filling up with fear and doubt and anger, maybe you need immediate rescue. But maybe you've never cried out at all. Maybe you've never said out loud, Lord, save me. Maybe you need to physically speak the words, Lord, save me. Stop drowning. Stop drowning. Let rescue come.